All right, diving in today on something I know is going to resonate with you. Self-improvement, but not just the doing. We're talking about how to really, talk about it in English. We've got these excerpts from English vocabulary for self-improvement discussions, and let me tell you, there's some real gems in here.
It's easy to just kind of gloss over vocab lists,
Yeah.
right? But this one really gets into how using the right words can actually supercharge your progress.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can say be more mindful all day long, but if I don't have the words to actually describe what that feels like, how do I even know it's working?
Exactly. And the guide, it lays out 4 reasons why talking about this stuff matters: accountability, inspiration, support, and reflection.
Okay, the first 3, those make sense.
Right.
Having a gym buddy, right?
Yeah.
Keeps you honest, keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
But reflection, that one's kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
What's so special about actually putting your self-improvement journey into words?
It forces you to think about your thinking. It's called metacognition. Imagine trying to explain your fitness routine to someone. You suddenly have to break it all down, why you chose certain exercises, how you're tracking progress. And you might realize things you hadn't even considered before.
So just by talking about it, I'm getting a deeper understanding of myself. Whoa. Okay, now this guide gives us some key words, like goal, habit, mindset. Seems pretty basic, right? But how do I actually use these in conversation without sounding like a textbook?
Try the sandwich method. You basically slip the new word between familiar ones. So instead of saying I'm stuck, you could say my mindset is holding me back. It flows better and you remember it easier.
Okay, I like that. And then there's phrases, right? Broken down by different stages, like setting goals, tracking progress. Some of these really jumped out at me, like I've reached a milestone, or do you have any tips for staying motivated? It just feels way more specific than just saying things are kind of good or help.
Exactly. It's like an invitation for a real conversation, And remember those 4 reasons: support and accountability. These phrases are how you unlock that. When you use clear language, people can actually engage with your journey.
Oh, totally. Makes sense. Now, the guide also gives some advice on, talking about this stuff effectively. Be specific. Use positive language, ask questions, share experiences, use analogies, which honestly is pretty good advice for any chat, right?
It is. But let's focus on one. How about positive language? So instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, I'm challenging myself to grow in this area. It's subtle, but it shifts your focus from what's wrong to what you're learning.
Wow, yeah. It really does make a difference. Our words have power. All right, last thing the guide covers is common mistakes to avoid. Being too vague, overloading yourself with goals, ignoring progress. I mean, we've all been there.
Right. Absolutely. And that overloading thing, that's a big one. It's tempting to just try and change everything at once, but that usually just leads to overwhelm, not success. Breaking down big goals into smaller steps, that's key. You want to write a novel. Don't focus on the whole book. Start with a chapter, a scene, even just a page a day.
So smart. It's about making those small wins feel real, and that keeps you going. Okay, there's a ton more to dig into, but I think this is a good starting point. What are your initial thoughts so far? Anything surprise you?
It's hitting me that this guide, it's not just about sounding smarter when you talk about self-improvement. It's it gives you the words to actually think about it more clearly.
Oh, for sure. If I can say, I've hit a plateau in my meditation practice, it's not just me using fancy words. It's me recognizing a specific challenge, so I can actually do something about it.
Right. And then you can take those same words and reach out for support, saying, hey, I'm looking for tips on overcoming a plateau. That's going to get you way more helpful advice than just complaining about feeling stuck.
Right. It's specific language, specific solutions. It makes me think about that advice in the guide to use analogies.
Yeah.
It's not just about sounding clever. It's about making these complicated ideas relatable, right? So comparing self-improvement to a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Suddenly those off days don't feel like failures anymore. They're just, part of the process.
You got it. And that ties back to, using positive language.
Yeah.
Even when you're talking about setbacks, the words you choose, they can either keep you stuck in that setback or they can help you see it as a learning opportunity.
So true. Okay, so we've talked about some general tips, but now I kind of want to get into the weeds a bit with this vocabulary. What are some of the specific phrases that really stood out to you?
Well, since you mentioned plateaus, there's this one. I'm looking for ways to break through this barrier. It captures that feeling so well, right? Being stuck, but also wanting to move forward.
I like that. Yeah, it's proactive, but not in a cheesy way.
Exactly. And did you notice how it kind of invites other people in? It's not a statement, it's a question. It's like an opening for a conversation.
You're making me want to go through this whole guide with a highlighter. But for now, let's imagine our listener, right? They're trying to actually use this stuff in real life. What are some situations where this vocabulary could be, like, really helpful?
Good question. What about those times when you might feel tempted to downplay your progress? So instead of saying, oh, it's no big deal, you could say, I'm proud of myself for making this change. Might feel a little awkward at first, but acknowledging your achievements, even small ones, it reinforces that positive self-talk.
That's so important. Yeah, we're often so quick to dismiss our own accomplishments, but using those specific phrases from the guide, it makes it harder to ignore them?
I know, right? And think about using this language in like a casual chat with a friend. Instead of saying, yeah, I'm trying to be more productive, you could say, I'm experimenting with time blocking techniques to optimize my workflow. It's like suddenly you're not just someone who's trying, you're someone who's actively engaged in self-improvement.
It's like leveling up your self-improvement game, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It's about communicating your commitment to personal growth, but in a way that's genuine and, I don't know, inspiring to others too.
Absolutely. And remember what the guide said about asking questions. Don't just talk at people about your goals, ask them about theirs. It shows you're genuinely interested and opens up the space for like a real back and forth exchange of knowledge and support.
That's such a good point. What's really clicking for me is that this whole thing, this guide, it's not just about learning new words. It's about being more intentional with the words we already use. It's like we all have this language of self-improvement inside us, right? This just helps us express it better.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about like harnessing the power of language to not just reflect on our journey, but to actually shape it?
Okay, I am officially obsessed with this concept. But before we get too carried away, let's make sure we address those common mistakes the guide warns about, right? Being too vague, overloading yourself with goals, ignoring progress. Should we dive into those a bit deeper? All right, let's break down these self-improvement pitfalls. First up, being too vague. We've talked about how important specific language is, but how do we actually put that into practice?
Well, think of it this way. It's like the difference between saying, I want to get fit and I'm going to run a 5K in 3 months. One is kind of just a wish, the other's an actual plan. The guide really encourages us to break down those huge, vague goals into smaller, more measurable steps.
Oh, okay, I see. So instead of, I want to be more mindful, it becomes, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes every morning. So it's not this abstract thing anymore. It's something you can, like, actually do.
Exactly. And when you get that specific, it's way easier to track your progress, which keeps you motivated. Every little step you take becomes a reminder that you're moving in the right direction.
Okay, vagueness. Gone. Next up is that classic overloading yourself with goals trap. We get all excited, make this huge to-do list, and then just crash and burn. How do we break that cycle?
The guide reminds us that self-improvement isn't about doing everything at once, right? It's about picking what matters most right now and focusing your energy there. It's like that saying, you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
So true. We need to be picky with our goals, just like we're being picky with our language.
Yeah. And once you've made some progress on those top priorities, then you can start adding more to your plate. It's all about building that momentum, not overwhelming yourself.
Okay, so we're clear on our goals, we're taking action, but then we forget to actually celebrate our wins. And the guide calls out ignoring progress as a huge mistake. Why is it so important to acknowledge our wins, even the small ones?
Think of it like this. You're giving yourself a high five for every mile you finish in that marathon we talked about earlier. Those small victories, they really keep you motivated and remind you that you can achieve great things.
Yeah, it's like we wouldn't train for a marathon without tracking our mileage and celebrating hitting those new distances, right?
Yeah.
Self-improvement deserves the same kind of attention and positive reinforcement.
For sure. And remember, those wins, they don't have to be huge. Maybe you finally used a new vocabulary word in a conversation, or you resisted that donut you really wanted. Those are still steps forward, and they're worth celebrating.
So instead of beating ourselves up for what we haven't done, we got to focus on celebrating what we've accomplished. And the more specific we are about those accomplishments, the more impactful it feels.
Absolutely. It's about being kinder to ourselves, shifting that focus away from self-criticism and towards self-compassion. It's about remembering that we're all works in progress, and each step we take, no matter how small, brings us closer to becoming the best versions of ourselves.
What's really striking me is that this conversation has been about so much more than just vocabulary. It's about using language as a tool for self-discovery, for motivation, for connecting with others. It's like we've unlocked a whole new level of self-awareness.
I totally agree. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not just about learning new words, it's about learning to use our words in a way that helps us grow and evolve.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought. Now that you have all these tools and insights, how are you going to use them to enhance your own self-improvement journey?
That's a great question. Will you use them to chat with a friend, set a more specific goal, maybe just celebrate a small win? The possibilities are endless, and the power is in your hands.
Remember, talking about self-improvement isn't about bragging or trying to impress people. It's about using language to help you grow, connect with others, and become the best version of yourself. So go out there, experiment with these new words and phrases, and see how they transform your journey.
And most importantly, have fun with it. Self-improvement should be enjoyable, not a chore. Embrace the journey, celebrate those wins, and keep those conversations going.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the language of self-improvement. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep talking about it.